Good evening. My name is Jennifer Snelling, and my presentation is on demonstrating Lewin's three-step and action research models in workplace bullying related situations. In this presentation, we will learn about how the following approaches introduced by Kurt Lewin apply to developing an intervention to preventing future instances of workplace bullying in organizations in order to maintain strong job retention. And these models are the three-step model and action research. In addition to learning how each approach is implemented toward this intervention, we will also learn the coincidence between the two approaches as to how the intervention will become effective. The three-step model consists of unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. In the unfreezing stage, it involves identifying the issue at hand, in which Lewin uses the term quasi-stationary equilibrium from the Burns article to describe the state of human behavior. In the moving stage, the individual or organization affected by change undergoes a brainstorm of different techniques that may develop a strategy for change to produce long-term effects. In refreezing, its purpose is to propose the changes that individuals and organizations analyze and decided upon. And Figure 1 shows a full demonstration of how the change model runs in time from unfreezing to refreezing. In action research, the 8 steps are problem identification, consultation with a behavioral science expert, data gathering and preliminary diagnosis, feedback to a key client or group, joint diagnosis of the problem, joint action planning, action, and data gathering after the action. In problem identification, I've actually put this in the form of a question. What is negatively affecting an organization in terms of performance? Basically to shed light on what the issue is, what the main issue is at hand. The consultation with a behavioral science expert involves in-depth assessment between the consultant and the client. In data gathering and preliminary diagnosis, the consultant conducts research and collects data for analysis. Feedback to a key client or group involves overall analysis to an individual, group, or organizational audience. The joint diagnosis of the problem entails the opportunity for the clients to either receive or reject the results, as well as to add their feedback on how to solve the problems. Joint action planning involves the consultant and the clients both proposing a viable solution to the problem. The action stage demonstrates the change from one organizational state to another in the form of new methods and or procedures, as well as more effective training and development practices. And the data gathering after action involves reporting the progress of the new changes in the organization by collecting data. In addition to organizational development in business, it is commonly practiced in educational business disciplines by teachers or administrators as well. For those of you who are familiar with action research and education. The steps usually entail selecting the focus, clarifying theories, identifying research questions, collecting data, analyzing data, reporting the results, and taking informed action. But since we are focusing more on an OD based case study, I am gearing towards the OD version of action research as cited in the comments and Word Seeds. The case study that I'm going to present in this presentation, according to research, would be in the guise of workplace bullying. According to authors Gillen, Sinclair, Kernahan, Begley, and Lubin, bullying has been identified as one of the leading workplace stressors with adverse consequences for the individual employee, group of employees, and whole organizations. The usual symptoms of employees who have been targeted as bullies in the workplace consist of, but not limited to, job dissatisfaction, anxiety and depression, and quick plans to quit their jobs. According to the Workplace Bullying Institute, 75% of the workforce's bullies were in a leadership position, in addition to 18% being coworkers within the same department and 7% were subordinates. 63% of workplace bullies were female, with 89% of female targets affected. 37% of workplace bullies were men, with 63% of female targets affected. Figure 2 shows here the breakdown of male bullies and female bullies, as well as the percentages of targets, albeit male and female. And this is the information that came from a 2012 Workplace Bullying Institute survey. The content in Table 1 demonstrates the strategies victims of workplace bullying have attempted while employed at their jobs, measured against the effectiveness rate of each attempted strategy, according to Workplace Bullying Institute. The sample size in which the results reflected on consisted of 1,598 respondents out of the 1,604 who participated in the Table 1 here, where I highlighted certain categories, certain percentages in green, notating the highest percentage of employees attempted a certain strategy. And in this case, it was where some employees reported incident to the senior management or owner, in which they are looking for intervention to resolve a workplace bullying issue. And that was 73.9%. And the effectiveness rate column, you have where it was more effective for employees to have actually filed a lawsuit. And this goes with what I have highlighted here in yellow, where 33.7% searched for an attorney to file a lawsuit, but 8.9% actually got a chance to file a lawsuit. And the effectiveness rate for searching for an attorney to file a lawsuit was next in ranking to the employees actually filing the lawsuit. And I found out too that within this discovery, it brings a newfound skewness of strategy over the effectiveness. The following statistics in this pie chart deal with how workplace bullying serves as a factor in an increase in job turnover, according to Workplace Bullying Institute, stating that employees may have resolved these issues of mistreatment in the workplace by being involved, or that their managers or supervisors may have decided. And over here in figure 3, which is the pie chart, they show a breakdown of how the targets of bullying have actually gotten involved in the mistreatment and how the outcomes applied. 28% voluntarily quit, 25% were forced out of their jobs or forced to resign, 25% were terminated, and 11% were transferred jobs. And the 77.7% who were no longer employed only involved the ones who quit, the ones who fired, and the ones who forcibly resigned. In summary, workplace bullying has identified, according to research, as one of the main stresses an individual can face on a job, with common symptoms such as job dissatisfaction and anxiety and depression. Most workplace bullying is perpetrated from people in leadership, mostly women, which was 63% of respondents, and the targets mostly being female, 89% of the respondents. The most common attempted method to stop bullying in the workplace is for the target to report the incident to senior management or the owner in hopes of intervention, which was 73.9%, with the most effective method was to file a lawsuit when granted the opportunity, 16.4%. And the most common response of individuals to bullying is that they will voluntarily quit their jobs, which represented 28% of respondents. Thus, the research question for this case study will be, What steps can organizations take to strategize prevention of future instances of workplace bullying in organizations to maintain strong job retention? And I answered that research questions beginning with using the three-step model. To reflect the unfreezing stage, managers and or administrators will identify the incidents that occur in the workplace from any reports employees affected by these incidents have filed to them. From there, the managers and or administrators will have developed a strategy where they can meet with employees that either have documented employees on file who were affected by the bullying only, or with all employees regardless of experience, in groups to gather input on what the issues of employees constantly leaving the job due to these incidents. At these meetings, the facilitators can offer the participants opportunities to develop the best practices organization can put in effect to prevent job turnover due to workplace bullying. Reflecting the moving stage. Once the consensus has been made as a result of the facilitators and participants brainstorming best practices, a strategic plan concerning how to improve the retention rate of employees in the organization will be drafted by the facilitators. The strategic plan must also include zero tolerance policy for everyone on workplace bullying, especially a stricter policy for leaders. After drafting the full strategic plan, the managers and our administrators will propose the plan to the employees to ensure that all strategies and policies are in place and that it is ready for finalization and enforcement. To reflect the refreezing stage, once the strategic plan has been finalized and the policies have been enforced, the organization can benchmark employees periodically to ensure constant enforcement of workplace bullying policies and job retention through surveys and evaluations. Using the action research model, I answered it in this fashion. I answered the research question in this fashion. Within problem identification, managers and or administrators will identify the incidents that occur in the workplace from reports filed by employees who were affected by the bullying and how former employees left in the midst of the bullying. Within consultation with the behavioral science expert, the managers and or administrators will meet to hire a consultant or a behavioral science expert to help analyze the current state of the organization and how they can propose a strategy to maintain strong retention among employees and to prevent future instances of workplace bullying. Data gathering and preliminary diagnosis. The consultant will gather as much data he or she can from the organization to reach a diagnosis. The consultant and feedback to a key client or group will present the diagnosis to the management and our administration on how to respond to the issues surrounding this diagnosis. In joint diagnosis of the problem, the consultant would then suggest the management and our administration to include the employees in the consensus. In joint action planning, everyone will have an input in developing the strategic plan to ensure that all strategies and all policies are in place, ready for finalization and enforcement. In action, the organization enforces the new plan and policy. Data gathering after action. Benchmarking will take place periodically to ensure constant enforcement of workplace bullying policies and job retention through surveys and evaluations, thus requiring feedback to the employees, the results of the surveys and or evaluations. And I have here figure 2.1 on page 23 of the Cummins and Worley book, which would translate as figure 4 in the presentation. And I see where you have Lewin's plan change model, or the three-step model, the action research model, and the positive model, which is also known as appreciative inquiry. However, I decided to only focus on 2 of the models, which I have demonstrated and presented thus far. And the reason being, I noticed how they closely related in terms of the operations. The three-step model is pretty much more broad, meaning anything can outline under each stage. Like the steps, like within those steps, the descriptions can pretty much fall under there. Action research model, in terms of speaking, can serve as those descriptions under each stage of the three-step model. And I thought that was pretty interesting. This in turn can help develop another model that can encourage detailed diagramming. And this brought on a new model that's called the blended organizational intervention model. You have your main topics, the unfreezing, the moving, and the refreezing. It's sort of built like an outline. You have your subtopics under unfreezing, problem identification, your consultation with the behavioral science expert, and your data gathering and preliminary diagnosis. Under moving, you have feedback to the key client or group, your joint diagnosis of problem, and joint action planning. And for refreezing, you have action and your data gathering after action. The application of the blended organization intervention model to the case study. It affects the importance of the need of a consultant, which affects the importance of a need of a consultant, and the information used for each step for both model becomes coded into topics and subtopics. Whereas in this case, you have your unfreezing stage where managers or administrators identifying the incidents occurring in the workplace, and then underneath you have your details in the problem identification, where the incidents identified were based on reports filed by employees who were affected by the bullying and how former employees left in the midst of the bullying. You have your consultation with the behavioral science expert, which involves the managers and administrators and employees meeting together to hire a consultant behavioral science expert, especially from the information gathered from the employees. Data gathering and preliminary diagnosis. Once a consultant is chosen who is well skilled in the field, he or she will begin to gather as much data as he or she can from the organization to reach a diagnosis. In the moving stage, which is served as a main topic, once the diagnosis has been made from the consultant, he or she will announce the diagnosis of the problem as well as to incorporate the employees to develop a strategic plan. And underneath you have your subtopics, your details. Feedback to key client or group, where the consultant will present the diagnosis to the management and or administration on how to respond to the issues surrounding the diagnosis. The joint diagnosis of the problem, which involves the consultant suggesting the management and or administration to include the employees in the consensus. And joint action planning, everyone involved will have an input in developing the strategic plan for finalization and enforcement of strategies and policies. Within the refreezing subtopic, within the refreezing topic, the strategic plan is put into action and the organization can benchmark the progress. Within action, you have the organization enforcing the new plan and the policy. And in the data gathering after action, that's where the periodic benchmarking will take place via surveys and or evaluations for continuous enforcement. And with that information gathered and analyzed, I also took the liberty to develop another model, which could affect both consultants and clients, called the consultancy infused intervention model. The 3 steps reflect the 3 stages of the 3-step model. You have incident detection, which reflects on the unfreezing stage, and that entails supporting evidence and employing reinforcements. Research and decision making, which reflects the moving stage, entails data gathering and collection and presenting results to clients for diagnosis. And the last step, overall consensus and official operation, which reflects on the refreezing stage, entails that the incident is resolved and new policy and a plan is established and periodic benchmarking. And within that, you have some kind of undertones of the action research model within the activities that go on within each stage of the consultancy infused intervention model. The outcomes of the research and future considerations. From analyzing the data and information concerning workplace bullying, implementing Lewin's 3-step and action research models to the case study, thus creating 2 more conceptual models to further validate the research, blended organizational intervention model and consultancy infused intervention model. The following outcomes of this research stemmed in: first, what organizations and its employees may have thought. Both models were comprehensive together and may have developed a cohesive flow from the unfreezing to the refreezing process. And both models were instrumental in creating more extensions of the models to develop future considerations to research and learn more about problem solving and decision making within the OD field. Additionally, this dynamic can highlight how workplace bullying is seen from a macro view perspective or universally, rather than a micro view perspective or organizationally. Therefore, the manner in which both models work to help achieve a long-term goal for the organization produce safe and astute guidelines for continuous performance. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to address them. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful evening.